This is the Saris M2 trainer, which I think's had a few other names. The Magnus, the Fluid 2, and I got it to replace a Vortex, Attax Vortex, which I've had for 5 years, which I was quite happy with, but it just died the other day there, 3 days ago. Printed circuit board just dead. Seems to be a reasonably common problem. So I'm trying this in terms of sweet point with price. I was also quite interested in having a wheel-on trainer because the bike I've got on here is an old aluminium 1983 Super Record bike with old tubs, and the tubular that's on it is a Continental, almost certain of the same age because it is really in a state. I think it's one of the original ones. It's pumped up to about 120 psi. And one thing when I was reading about the reviews recently is I noticed something that I hadn't done, which is you can adjust this side, because at the moment that probably doesn't show up too well, but it's not actually. You can see it's not centered on the drive there. And what I hadn't realised is that this side's adjustable, which I can see is clear as day now, but when I put it together yesterday I didn't notice that. So presumably I can just try that in the middle one. And I'm using the skewer, the steel skewer that was supplied with the M2. Well, that's a lot better. Right, so generally I quite like this. I quite like it. As I quite like a wheel-on trainer because, well, they're cheaper, and when you've got an old bike like this and you want to just try out, you know, I've been having lots of problems with the bottom bracket and the drivetrain and trying to get that working, and obviously it really needs the road test is the acid test, but when you just want to try things out, it's quite nice to have a wheel-on trainer. You can just put it on and ride it for a little while, and you also vary the resistance. So that's what I was doing. It's 120 psi or just under, and the problem is, and this is quite a common problem from what I can gather from doing a bit of digging in the University of Google, is that this clutch knob, this yellow clutch knob, is meant to work in the same way as a petrol cap, and it should click when it gets to pressure. I mean, it looks absolutely fine. It seems absolutely fine. And I'm nervous because when you read some of the reviews and accounts on the web, I think it's quite easy to over tighten it. And I just don't want to have a bent trainer when I've only had it 2 days, and I don't want to hassle of trying to take it back or whatever. So let's take it up to there. It's touching. There it's touching. And from what I can gather, people are finding anything between 2, 3, 4 full turns should get it to the click. And I've seen the YouTube videos and it's quite clear that it does click quite clearly, audibly. So it should be quite unambiguous. So at first I thought it was a bit like a torque wrench at a low setting, where you're turning the torque and you have to be very, very careful and listen out for it. And then you start imagining you're hearing clicks and ticks everywhere. So that's just touching and no more. And another thing I read, I think on the Trainer Road forums, was you have to be very careful to turn and not actually exert any pressure when you're actually doing it, otherwise you'll inadvertently cause it to click or not to click. So just turn and let the clutch knob do the work. So let's try this. And I'll probably lose my nerve. I think I got up to about 10 full turns at least. So let's do it. That's 1. That's 2. That's 3. That's 4. I can feel a bit of resistance there. And I can see the tyre is about, well, you can see that as well. There's a fair bit of pressure there now. God, there it is. And I'd say it's about, oh, I'd say it was about a third in, but let's keep going. It's 5. So that's 6 full turns. And it's easily 50% in, and that's 120 psi. I know it's an old tub. That's 7. You see, I think that's wrong, and I'm keeping an eye on this L bolt because people have talked about it deforming the frame, and it's quite hard to be objective, but I would say I'm getting to the point where I'm in danger of actually causing some physical damage if I'm not careful. And of course, if it does deform the frame, if it does actually stress it and there's fatigue on the metal, it's you know, it's not, you can, I don't think it's the sort of thing you can back off or get a warning. Let's go for it. That's 8, and I think that's as far as I'm going to go. That's 8 full turns. No click. Oh, bloody hell. Surely to God. Wow. I didn't expect that. It's a classic, just when you think you're going to put a support call in, which I have actually. And you go through everything once more just to clarify in your own mind where you are. Wow. That's a lot of turns, that's a lot of pressure. So that's, good grief. So that's 8 turns. I'll take this off. And this is just to have a look. So as I say, I know it's an old Conti. Now I think we're talking about 50%. Yeah, I think that shows it quite well. I mean, that looks like more than 50% to me. Well. But that was the most palpable click, wasn't it? So I think whether it's working as designed remains to be seen, and I'll try doing a calibration test, which seems to be an adventure in its own right. But, wow, interesting. Well, I tried pedaling a little bit on that, and I was thumping away quite noticeably when it was getting to the valve. I mean, it is It is perishing, this tub. This is the sort of thing you'd think it'd be ideal for, just using in the trainer. I noticed I'm going to try pumping it up a little bit harder and then going through that process again just to see if it was fluke. And of course the pressure could have dropped and the time that last did it. Because the advice seems to be up to and just slightly off maximum recommended tire pressure, which for this, well, it says 145 psi. It's amazing it's still readable on the tub wall. So if I go to about say 135, 140, goodness me, I don't think I'll ever top, assuming it doesn't explode. Right, that's about 130. Which I think it was giving me a hint there. Back on track, putting tubs up this high. Right, let's check that wasn't a fluke. So bring it up to just touching. And last time it was 8 and a bit. 8 and a smidgen, 8 and a quarter. Oh, so there's my mark, so let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This makes me so nervous with that. You can really feel the resistance. So that's 6. Yeah, so it's pretty deformed, even though that pressure. Oh, that's interesting. So we got to 6 that time. That's interesting how much difference that. I'm assuming that's because it's pumped up harder. Would that make sense? Higher pressure, more resistance when you're pushing it in. Therefore, so I suppose you're going to get to there's going to be more force, more pressure earlier. Alright. Gosh, it still looks pretty far in. About 50% perhaps. Perhaps a little bit less. But I think, and this is probably not the trainer's fault, it's probably just the old tub, that I'm going to, if I just hop on there, try and ride it. Actually, that's not bad. That is quite a noticeable difference just by having the, and that was just an outlying thought. I just thought, well, let's just pump up a bit harder. But I can't feel the valve anymore. That really is quite encouraging. That's looking pretty good, that's looking pretty centred. But interesting, this is over the leftmost position. So that's It's in 120 psi, so that's quite soft. So what do you reckon? If I take it up to about 120 psi and then just back it off a little, that seems to be the just shy of the actual recommended maximum. And then I'll try increasing the clutch knob again and see if it works as I hope it will. Yeah, we're just shy of 120 there. That's looking okay. I mean, it's not as true as I'd like. There's a little bit of a bump there. I wonder if that's the tyre or the rim. Must be the tyre because it's a new wheel. I've got the wheel specially just as a trainer tyre, trainer wheel. That's quite interesting. It shows you quite well the. I wonder what it is, about 2 or 3 mil perhaps. Is it as much as that? Anyway, let's try. Let's go for the click. Right, there's contact, and obviously it wouldn't take much to get a bit of slippage when it's barely touching. So that's, yeah, that's what I would expect. So we're about 1/4 there with my little mark. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, it's a bit nerve-wracking this, you know, when you think of the old Vortex, which it was a lever and you just pressed it down and flipped up to release it before and after every session. That was quite nice and elegant. So this is a bit, you know, to do this every time you want to do a training session, rather than have something that locks into place. 6.5. Right, so I think it ain't broke. It's working as designed, which I'm pleased. But it's, you know, you have to hold your nerve a bit because you think, especially when there's so many stories about people over tightening it through no fault of their own. It sounds like they've had a faulty part, and it's hard to tell what would give, whether it would be the L bolt, which is replaceable, or whether it's the part of the frame that it slips and slots into, which, as far as I can tell, is a fundamental part of the A-frame. Seems to be, I'm not quite sure where it's attached to. And if that goes, then, you know, it's quite high risk to keep tightening it, and to keep tightening it if you're worried about bending the frame. So 6 and a bit. So that's what I need to remember, that if it's working properly, 6 and a bit. Now I just have to go through the joys of trying to do a software calibration. So I'll try this tonight.